Hello and welcome. My name is Andre, and I'm really honored and happy to be part of GatsbyConf 2021. My talk today will cover four main topics: how I moved a blog from WordPress to Gatsby, how I added multiple data sources to that site, how I added a faceted search also to that Gatsby site, and then at the end, how I made the whole project bilingual. First of all, some facts about me. As I've already mentioned, my name is Andre. I am a designer turned developer. I'm 31 years old. I am born and raised in Chemnitz, Germany. I am in the internet and developing game for 15 years now, and I've worked on projects of any scale and architecture, from traditional monolithic CMS to custom software mainly written in Ruby. I am also the creator of the Gatsby plugin for GDPR compliant cookies, which works with Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager, and also Facebook Pixel. So about the project. First of all, I'll be talking about the blog I already mentioned, Zucker and Jagdwurst, which means sugar and sausage in English. It's a German vegan food blog. It's a bilingual blog, so it's in German and English. You should check them out on Instagram, Zucker Jagdwurst. They really got delicious and great recipes. They are around since 2016, and they initially started out with WordPress with all the drawbacks that came with that. And they have currently about 800 recipes and pages, including over 5,000 assets, mainly photos. The site is hosted on Gatsby hosting since January, which works really, really well. And I'm impressed by the performance and also how easy it was to deploy the page and get it up and running. So here you can see the front page of the blog. It is really a simple site. We have this hero or main post / recipe on the top of the site. There's also the navigation bar, and then we have some recent posts and recipes. This is an overview that we call promotion. It includes multiple recipe cards where you can scroll through from left to right, and this is a screenshot from a recipe. So first of all, I'm going to cover how and why we moved from WordPress to Gatsby. There have been multiple reasons to quit WordPress for sure. When Julia and Isa, the founders of Zucker and Jagdwurst, started out in 2016, they used WordPress because for them it was really easy to set up, to install a theme and get up and running. The result of this was pretty usual to WordPress because they had a really bad Lighthouse rating. And also the theme they bought had really poor responsive adaptation. So, and the site already has been bilingual back then. So shortly after they started the blog, I joined them in order to help them improve the performance and also the user experience overall. Some little facts on the architecture we've used between WordPress and before Gatsby. So after I joined them, we really ditched WordPress right at the beginning because of the facts I've mentioned earlier. We chose Contentful as a CMS because I really like working with headless CMS. It's way easier for the editors as well as for me as a developer. As a client, I chose Middleman. As I've mentioned earlier, I am working with Rails, which is written in Ruby, and Middleman is also a static site generator written in Ruby. The content migration from WordPress to Contentful hasn't been that easy. I hope that I can write some sort of a script that will auto import all the WordPress data into Contentful. This could have worked actually, because Contentful also offers a WordPress export package. But since they have already used a plugin to localize the page, this plugin merged the English and German contents into one database column, which made it really hard to separate both of them. This led to a lot of manual work at the end. So we did the middleman client, which was a huge improvement in site performance, and also since we didn't use any pre-built themes, the user experience was way better overall too. We ran into one major issue with using middlemen, and that's build times. So we had around 6 to 12 minute build times, and the more content they produced, the worse it got. And for 2 editors updating the website every day, it's really hard to wait 6 to 10 or 12 and even like sometimes 15 minutes to have content changes reflect on the website, because that really slows down the whole workflow of editing and creating your recipes. So the solution for this was that I've removed the middleman client and moved it to a Create React app. This actually quite surprisingly led to a similar SEO performance and also performance overall for the user. The benefit was that content changes have been reflected immediately, so it was way easier for them to create and update recipes and to maintain the website at all. For the Create React app, we had one issue at the end, and this was perceived performance in some conditions. I was fetching the data from Contentful on every page render, and this could lead to multiple API fetches to Contentful, which then slows down the UI immediately if you are on a train maybe and using your phone. So we really wanted to get away from that and have this static site performance we had before using middlemen. That's when I ran into Gatsby, and for me it was clear the only choice that I had to migrate this website to, because there are so many benefits you get from Gatsby, as we all know. It's first of all a static site generator, which makes the website super fast without doing any crazy caching or whatsoever. The performance is also really fast, as I've mentioned, and even like the perceived performance with preloading data when you hover over links and all that stuff. And the main selling point, to be honest, was also incremental builds, because we could have cut down the initial build times from also 5 to 6 minutes on Gatsby to a couple of seconds, and even just like 10 to 30 seconds maybe, which is a way better experience for the developer at all. Also, Gatsby offers a huge ecosystem in regards to plugins, and in contrast to WordPress plugins, they don't make the site slower or heavier, which was a really great benefit for me too. The migration from the Create React app to Gatsby was pretty easy, to be honest, because Gatsby, as we all know, is also written in React, and I just had to adjust how data is fetched in those components, and that's basically it. I was able to move a lot of the components over to Gatsby and use them straight away. And also a bonus for using Gatsby right now is for me Gatsby Cloud, because it makes it really easy to build the site, connect it to Contentful, and then also host it on there. On Gatsby, not on Contentful. Next up, multiple data sources. So another great feature of Gatsby is that you can add multiple data sources to one front end. As I've mentioned earlier, we are using Contentful as the CMS for the blog, And then we also use Shopify for a little shop area. And for me, especially as a developer, it's been super easy because I can query data from Shopify and Contentful using only one GraphQL schema. And I don't have to worry about multiple different programming languages, front-end languages, and different styles or whatsoever. There are mainly two different ways of sourcing content in Gatsby. That's first of all Gatsby plugins and schema customization. First of all, the default Gatsby behavior. So most of CMS or data sources you're going to use will have an official plugin for Gatsby. This makes adding any content from any source really easy because you only have to install the plugin, edit some credentials, and that's it. When you run your site or build your site, you will have all the data in your GraphQL schema or Gatsby store. And for me, especially as a developer, it makes life so much easier because I only need to know one pattern to get data, and that's it. I don't have to deal with maybe different API specs or whatsoever. So data can be fetched in templates or using static query, which is super easy, and that's it. You can use data from pretty much any source out there. Here's an example I am using in the Zuckerjagdwurst project. As you can see, there is the Gatsby source Contentful plugin, which takes in space ID, access token, and the host, which I'm using for preview and production. And also there is the plugin source Shopify, which also takes some credentials in order to retrieve products and all of the information. Way number two, or like not way number two, but it's an additional way to handle your data is schema customization. And this is also a huge benefit for me, to be honest, because it helps when data needs to be transformed or combined. You can also move the data transformations into the build process, which means whenever you visit this site through the browser, you don't have to deal with merging content or whatsoever, because everything is there as you need it. And it also allows the schema to be way more flexible. I've also have an example for this. At Zuckerjagdwurst, we have two content types for recipes and posts. We do this because of different URL patterns and for various other reasons too. The thing is that both should be merged into one type, because we, as you've seen before, and I have some screenshots coming up right now, we have this main header area, which can be the most recent post or recipe. And then we had those recent posts, which is also a collection of most recent recipes and posts. Therefore, I have added a custom type and query and some transformations to the contentful data in a custom resolver. So as I've mentioned, here's a screenshot of the front page. As you can see, we have the hero area on top and then the most recent posts. And it was really important to mix recipes and posts there, because both are so important to the site. What I've done is create a new GraphQL type called content car, which has all the data needed to display images, the title, get the link, and also if it's an ad, for example. All right, so this is the root query I've added. It's called recent recipes and posts. And what I've done here actually is to run a GraphQL query against the Gatsby store, which retrieves all the contentful posts. They are sorted by the publish date, so that the most recent one will be the first. And after that, I run another query which fetches all the most recent contentful recipes. Then I'll merge them into one big array. I'll sort them again by the publish date, and then they're limited by the limit I passed through the GraphQL query. In this case, it's 11 because I have one hero post or recipe, and then there are 10 additional ones. So there's a comment saying transform data. This is where I transform the data that I get back from the queries as needed. Here you can see the actual query I am running in the page template. So it's the recent recipes and posts. I'm passing the current local to be able to differentiate between English and German, and also the limit, which I mentioned earlier. And then there are like different fields that are important in order to either build the URL or show titles or teaser or whatsoever. So another bonus with Gatsby is that, or with Contentful and Shopify to be honest, is that you can install the Shopify app for Contentful, which enables a connection between Contentful and Shopify. This means you can reference Shopify products within your Contentful content entries. And this is super helpful because at the end you only need to query the same GraphQL store you have all the time in Gatsby, but also you get like content entries and nested products, for example, in those queries. As a side note, we are also fetching a podcast XML feed of their podcast, and this is also done through a Gatsby plugin, which was really easy, which then transforms the XML into GraphQL types, which makes querying them super easy. Next up is the Faceted Search. So search to me has been a quite complex topic, to be honest, because for most traditional or monolithic CMS, it's quite easy. You install a plugin, they can do some database queries, retrieve the content, and you can display it. This time around, it's quite harder because I cannot query the Contentful API, because this will return some different data than I already have due to the custom resolvers and schema customization. A option would have been to use Algolia, but to be honest, for this project, it's just way too expensive. We have so many search requests every month, and if you then calculate how much only the search would cost monthly, that would be way out of budget. So my requirements for the search have been quite easy. It should be easy to maintain without any additional infrastructure. I need to index recipes, posts, pages, and also products, which means I need to be able to mix data from Contentful and also from Shopify. And search results needed also to be filtered based on some aggregations, which we see right now. On the right-hand side, you can see those aggregations or filters I've mentioned earlier. We can filter recipes and posts by categories and time and stuff that's in there, and also the difficulty. So what I've done was creating a custom Gatsby plugin for search. I'm going into this soon. Then I've added a full text faceted search using items.js, and a goal for the whole thing would be to use serverless functions as soon as Gatsby hosting supports them. The custom search plugin. So what I've basically done was writing a plugin that will take queries, which will then return product data and post data and page data, and also recipe data that is needed in order to have all the search data for the search. This generates two JSON files. One is for the German search results and the other one is for the English search results. This data is also transformed, as you can see here. So I'm renaming some stuff, I'm excluding different pages, as you can see in the transform pages method. And this really gives me the flexibility to adapt different stuff, which is basically important for search. For example, when I go back to the time, maybe we have recipes that are 15 minutes and one is 18 minutes. Another one is 30 minutes. So all that need to fit into this one category, which is under 20 minutes or under 40 minutes and under 60 minutes or over 60 minutes. And therefore I use transformation in order to calculate how long the time will be and in which category a recipe then will fall into. So this is the English search page. As you can see, I'm importing the search store JSON file. I'm passing this to the search field component. This makes it quite easy to also localize the search, because when I initially started out with the plugin, I had all the search data within one JSON file, and this just got too big. So just split them in order to have a more performant search. As you can see here, the store is passed to the component, which is then used with items.js. I've also have the different aggregations in there and the searchable fields. And as you can see, I am then searching the search store generated by items.js with the query, and then all the posts are sorted by the title. Internationalization. This has been a really important topic from the beginning, because when Isa and Julia started out with their blog, it already has been bilingual, German and English. So we always had to keep in mind to support 2 or maybe potentially even more languages. First of all, Contentful and Shopify. So it makes Contentful especially makes it very easy to deal with multiple locals, because you can just add one or multiple locals in your Contentful admin, and that's it. You can then translate all your content, and localized content can be fetched through the GraphQL schema, and all you have to do is basically pass the local into every query. Shopify, on the other hand, doesn't have localization out of the box, but you can install a third-party app which then enables the same thing. For me as a developer and also for the editors, it's really easy, because we don't have to deal with different database columns and merging data and whatsoever. It's really easy to set up a localized page with Contentful and Shopify. On the other hand, there are also translations needed for static text. So whenever there's a label, maybe if you go to a recipe or you hit the search button, this should be localized too. So when I was looking into this, I wasn't quite sure on how to achieve this at the beginning, to be honest. And I did some research and I also dig through the Gatsby documentation. And to be honest, I didn't want to use any I18N packages, because the only thing that this translations needs to do is translate some commands into static text. So there is no support for plurals or whatsoever. It's just one command that should be translated into a static string. And I also decided to not use a package for this, because I had Moment.js installed on the page to transform some of the dates and the formats of the dates. And at the end, when using the Webpack analyzer, I saw that Moment.js made up a really huge part of the overall bundle size. And this has been another reason why I didn't use like some sort of existing package for doing this. Also, I wanted all the static translations to be organized in one place, in one file, which makes it really easy for me to translate and have a good overview of what's going on. And I also needed a reusable and easy implementation. So as you can see here, this is an example of my translations.js file. I've stripped it down to make it easier to understand. So first of all, as you can see, there is this constant for translations. This is just a nested object, and here we have like general terms and add, and this is translated in German, which means Werbung, or in English add. So this whole thing is also inspired by Rails, which uses translations quite similar. They split them into multiple files, but the overall concept is pretty much the same. Down there is the magic that will translate a command I'm putting into a function into the static string. So commands are basically strings that use dot notation, so it can be general.add, and whenever the translate method is executed, the method is looking for the local dot general dot add, and I'm doing this through the reducer function. That's pretty much it. This will return then Werbung or add, and if there is no match found, the try and catch method will then return another string which says translation is missing, which you then can also see in the front end. Down there is an example, again with the general and add thing, and this resolves to either add or Werbung, depending on the local that's passed to it. As you can see, this is a really straightforward and lightweight option in order to handle translations for static strings. And for me, the huge benefit also has been that this will be included in the bundle once. So it keeps the size really small. There is no extra stuff I don't need, which blows up the bundle. It's pretty straightforward, it's easy to use, and it's reusable all over the page. The only thing I have to do is import the translate function, pass a command, and then the local, and that's it. Thank you so much for watching my talk. I hope it was helpful to somebody. I know it's been quite a lot to cover in just 30 minutes or 25 minutes. That's why there will be a Q&A right after you watch this video. If there are any other questions left, feel free to send me a DM on Instagram or tweet at Andre Zimpel. And you can even send me an email to andre@unknownbasics.com. So thank you so much again for watching this video, and I hope to see you soon again.